It has been a while since I made a legal video, and I wanted to do one for quite a while, but I've been distracted by other content. Nonetheless, I know exactly who and what to make it on.
I usually report the news, but this week you may have noticed I'm in the news because I'm suing Facebook for defamation because they simply lie about what I said in these two videos.
In this video, we're going to look at John Stossels' lawsuit against Facebook and climate feedback. However, we're going to break it down into two videos, covering the defamation complaint and then Facebook's response. Starting first with the complaint, John Stossel claims Facebook and feedback defamed him in two manners. One, false attribution, and two, they call this video partly false. Let's start with the latter as opposed to the first. That Stossel argues the label partly false is defamatory. As the suit states, a reasonable reader viewing these false statements in context would and did understand them to mean that Stossel's reporting contained inaccurate facts, rendering it partly false. Stossel's lawsuit finds this to be untrue, as it writes that this is provably false. The alarmism video contains no false facts. This is further emphasized and defended by pointing out that when they had labeled Stossel's video false, were based on perceived implications that defendant drew from true facts stated in Stossel's report, not on false facts, and that one of the reviewers themselves stated that the problems wasn't with specific facts being wrong, just that broader claims are being disputed. Now, implications in themselves are not problematic, as I'm going to guess this lawsuit is going to heavily rely on them in the future because of the first defamation claim. But we will discuss that later. This entire section is used to delete the point that defendants apply these labels knowing full well that Stossel's content contained not a single false fact. In other words, the suit is arguing that Facebook had acted with malice. As the suit alleges, the Climate Feedback's article amounts to that of an opinion piece and should have been treated as such by Facebook. Let's step back for a moment and actually look at the evidence. For the issue of perceived implication, this relies on a response to the statement made by David Leggett that the water has been rising for approximately 20,000 years and probably will continue. With feedback responding to this by writing that this is imprecise and misleading, as it implies sea levels have continued rising since then, and current sea level rise is just a continuation of past natural fluctuations. So the suit relies on the word implies and then extends it to the rest of the article. I say extends because the word implies is only used once in the entire article, and the article makes multiple responses to Stossel's video, with some of the responses directly stating that the statements in Stossel's video were false. To extend the word implies outside of what it's being used in is nonsensical. However, to take issue in the fact that they use the word implied aims to take away from the actual statement. Words have meaning outside of what they are. That's why we treat hyperbolic language to be hyperbolic. No point in simply reading the statement. Let's go to the source.
You acknowledge, though, the water is rising.
Yes, the water has been rising for approximately 20,000 years and probably will continue.
But we can adapt, like Holland has.
I'm going to have to lend myself on feedback's side. Bringing up 20,000 years lends itself to creating the assertion that the water rising is a normal occurrence. But Stossel could easily show that this is a misunderstanding of the statement. We could clearly see that he hadn't actually finished speaking before he was cut off. Stossel could show what and why that statement was used, as to further discredit what climate feedback had written. All we need to see is the uncut version. Well, with any luck, I did find that video.
You acknowledge, though, the water is rising.
Yes, the water has been rising for approximately 20,000 years and probably will continue to rise until either one of two things happens. One, we wind up in another ice age, or until we run out of ice. I mean, essentially, we are at an interglacial period, and I don't believe we have reached equilibrium yet, which is why there's been continual melt.
So it's not a perceived implication, as the suit argues. It's what Leggett's intentions were when he made that remark. It's almost ironic that Stossel, who was suing because he got fact-checked, left out the context of the statement. As if he had actually shown more in his suit and his video, it would have proved the fact-checkers from Climate Feedback's understanding of Leggett's statements to be on the mark. The Leggett statements that the water has been rising for approximately 20,000 years and will probably continue were to imply that the water rising is a natural occurrence. He says it himself. The fault of water rising is because that we're in an interglacial period. Leggett even ends the speech by indicating that he thinks that CO2 has no effect on the water rising. Once again, hammering home that feedback was right when they understood him to mean that the statement was intended to imply current sea level rise is just a continuation of past natural fluctuations. Well, what about the issue of the review had they made the claim that the problem is the omission of contextual information, rather than specific facts being wrong, and broader claims are being disputed, with Stossels' suit adding on rather than false facts? These statements come from an email sent by Patrick Brown, one of the reviewers from Feedback, and luckily enough, Brown had actually shown and released the contents of that email on his Twitter. I do think that all of the above statements are misleading in isolation. The problem is the omission of contextual information rather than specific facts being wrong. I think the published review by Climate Feedback makes this clear. The review does not consist of corrections of numerical errors, facts being demonstrably wrong. Rather, the review takes the above claims and places them in broader context, adding additional information that I would argue is critical for full understanding of the issues. I think the second paragraph from the review summary illustrates this point. Specific numbers, i.e. facts, are not being disputed. Broader claims are being disputed. Once again, unironically, Stossel has left out the context of a statement. When Patrick had written specific facts, he meant facts relating to numerical errors. That's why in his response, he had any dispute with any numerical issues within Stossels' video. But the entire claims themselves, which carry a certain effect, as to whether water rising is a natural occurrence. Well, the second claim doesn't look great, but there's a reason I left the first claim for last. It's somehow worse. The suit writes that defendant stated by implication that in Stossels' fire video, Stossel made the claim forest fires are caused by poor management, not by climate change, that he did not make. Defendants affixed a misleading, missing context label to the fire video, which routed viewers directly to the false attribution about Stossel and his reporting. It is true that Stossel doesn't ever say this in his fire video. However, there is a very good reason why the suit is now fine with waving around the word implication. That's because neither Facebook nor Climate Feedback mentioned Stossels' name or video once. And the only way Stossel can make this defamation claim is relying that the speaker had clearly implied that they were referring to Stossel. There's actually a really good reason why Climate Feedback article never mentions Stossels' videos. It's because the article itself isn't about his video. Even in the screenshot of the article in the suit's complaint, you can clearly see that the source for the claim is only called Facebook users. To note, there is a link, and it does give us the exact user who made that claim. And it's not Stossel. And if we go down below and read the article, we find out why they said Facebook users in plural. They claim that forest fires currently burning in the western United States are caused by poor forest management and not by climate change appeared in multiple Facebook posts published in September 2020. The article was made to respond in general to multiple posts arguing the same topic. However, we can completely show that this article was never written in reference to Stossels' video with one simple thing. In the beginning of the complaint, they tell us Stossels' video was published on September 22nd. What's unusual about this is in the entire complaint, it doesn't mention once when Climate Feedback's article was published. That's because the article was published 6 days before Stossels' video. They also seem to ignore the fact that Climate Feedback listed the date of when the claim was made, September 9th, 13 days before Stossels' video was released. It's funny too, because the suit doesn't even crop out their snapshot of it when the claim was made. Here is an interesting idea. Would it be defamatory if Climate Feedback had actually claimed Stossel had made that claim? Now we would know that the statement would be considered to be false, as Stossel never says it in his video. However, the second part of defamation is the question of whether it would expose Stossel to hatred, contempt, or ridicule. In Stossels' suit, he attempts to highlight that they think climate change has contributed to the fires. They just don't think it's the primary reason for these fires. This is done to create a further distinction between their video and the claim, thereby opening them up to ridicule. The problem is, Stossel makes a statement in the video that is nearly the same argument that the article's claim makes.
If not climate change, what is to blame?
Only you can prevent forest fires.
Foolish policies, For years, governments put out every fire they could. But if you want to protect forests,
When you yourself make statements that are exactly the same to the claims made in the article, the only person who made you open to ridicule is you. It's even made worse by this section of the suit. In the fire video, Stossels repeatedly acknowledged that climate change plays a role in forest fires. He cited data from Western Regional Climate Center and stated that climate change has made things worse. California warmed 3 degrees over 50 years. However, the suit leaves out Stossels' entire statement. That's because it ends in a but.
climate change has made things worse. California's warmed 3 degrees over 50 years. But
You could have had this amount of warming and not had these fires.
So once again, the video is claiming the fault and cause of forest fires is because of forest management, the same argument the claim makes. All in all, this lawsuit has been pretty nonsensical and doesn't look like it's going to win. You may hate Facebook, most people do, but this lawsuit isn't going anywhere, and it's going to be laughed out of court. A little digging into any of the suit's claims shows they're pretty sketchy, but you don't need to take my word for it. Everything I've talked about will be linked down below. And I'd just like to say thank you for everyone who watched, and it would be great if you could like and subscribe. It really informs me what kind of content people want to see, and like always, thanks for watching.